Hello again. This is Annie Rudin with Pronunciation Pro. Before we start our normal episode, our podcast episode, I just wanted to let you know that come January 2025, we have some exciting things happening at Pronunciation Pro. We have our next cohort or our group of students going into our Plus and Premier, our private training options at Pronunciation Pro. We have about 15 to 20 spots available, and those tend to go really fast in January. So be sure to get on our mailing list so that you can get first word about those trainings. Also, I have an advanced leadership communication masterclass that I'll be doing starting in January, and I will be teaching that personally. And it's going to go through a lot of the skills that our students need beyond English pronunciation and accent. So, this is for those who maybe are pretty clear to understand in English. Maybe you don't get asked, well, can you say that again? Or can you repeat yourself, but you're still lacking the full confidence in English to open a meeting at work or give presentations, to do small talk with your superiors. If you need more advanced vocabulary, more powerful, more persuasive vocabulary in English, if you're preparing for job interviews and need to prep for those job interviews, if you need help with resume writing and your LinkedIn profile and how to use LinkedIn more effectively to get better jobs, this leadership communication training will encompass all of that. So there's a lot that we will be able to cover and really help you understand the cultural differences of American culture in the workplace. Okay, so very, very exciting. A lot of things happening here. So if you're not on the Pronunciation Pro mailing list, definitely jump into the description below so that you can get on our mailing list and be notified right away when some of these programs are available come the end of December. Okay, enjoy the episode.
Pronunciation Pro.
Pronunciation Pro.
Hello again, and welcome to the Pronunciation Pro podcast. My name is Annie Rudin, and I am the host here at Pronunciation Pro on this podcast, and I am the founder and kind of lead of the Pronunciation Pro online training program. So today, for our podcast episode, we are going to talk about the book Hyperfocus by Chris Bailey. Now, in the Pronunciation Pro program and with our pro community, as we call ourselves, every other month we do a book club. And it's just a fun way for us to all get together and to learn some new skills and new concepts and really just kind of discuss these ideas with each other. And it's just kind of fun. It's a fun environment. It's a group of people who are committed to growth and just growing and learning in their careers and in their lives. So I love the conversation that happens and the ideas that are shared during these book club meetings based on a certain topic that we choose. So for this week, or this month, it was the book Hyperfocus, which is how to be more productive in a world of distraction. So if you can relate to this concept of just needing to be more productive and just feeling like there's distractions all over the place and you don't have enough time to get done the things that you need to, this episode is for you and something that I'm sure will benefit you greatly, as it will most all of us in this world of distractions that we all have. So we're going to go through, there's kind of 7 points that I have here. And I'm also going to share some of the ideas that our students at Pronunciation Pro shared with us today. They had, some incredible insight. So many of them are doing this very well, but there's always ways to get better. And so what I had our students do is identify at the beginning of our class, something that they want to be able to, a goal or something that they want to be able to accomplish or get better at or something. So some of the ideas were like, someone was talking about wanting to read more or wanting to be able to read for comprehension more in English. Someone else was talking about they want to do more blogging. and write on their blog more. Obviously, speaking English better and being able to be more focused as they go through the Pronunciation Pro online training program, because we have, certain modules, and there's videos with each module, and there's practice that goes along with each module. And so it does take a lot of focus to go in and really work on this skill of pronunciation and the American accent. So, we know, I was telling them, I'm like, we know that the Pronunciation Pro program works, but you have to actually do the things in the program. And there's a certain level of focus that has to happen and time devoted to it to be able to get those results. And anything worthwhile, it in our lives required effort, right? The things that you value the most required effort. And so we want to make sure that our effort and our attention is going to the right things. I think a lot of times our attention goes to whatever is the most urgent at the time, or whatever is catching our attention, because our brains are they're not wired for deep focus and attention. They're wired for like identifying, the novel things in life. So we really have to train and practice giving our brains that exercise in deep focus. And in our conversation today in the book club, there was a lot of conversation about exercising this muscle of focus, because it is something that can be developed. Anyone can develop this focus muscle in their brains so that they can have more deliberate attention to the things that they want to attend to. And that's the whole idea, is to be intentional about it. Okay, so with any book that we're reading or anything that we're really doing at Pronunciation Pro, I always like to emphasize that we're here to just do 1% better. If we can improve by 1% every day, the compound effect of that is incredible. So just reminding you of this concept of just 1%. We don't have to change everything about the way that we're doing life. We just have to identify what are the little things that we can implement every day that can help us get 1% better. Okay. The main concept of this book that we need to be intentional with our attention. Okay. Being intentional with our attention. So intention is kind of deciding beforehand and identifying what we want to accomplish or what we want to do with our attention, like where our brain goes, where our thoughts and our focus goes. Okay, so that is really the main idea here. So what we're doing is how to do this. How do we create more focus and intention on the things that we really want to attend to, so that we can accomplish the things that we most want to accomplish. So as a summary, just kind of an overall concept of this book. So Hyperfocus, How to Work Less to Achieve More, by Chris Bailey. He teaches readers how to better manage their attention to be more productive and satisfied with their work and life. The book describes two mental states we can use to reach our goals. There's hyperfocus and there's scatter focus. And we'll talk more about the idea about these two in just a minute. So each serves a different purpose, and the author suggests that learning to shift between them is the key to improving productivity, creativity, and reducing stress. I'm going to say that again. So improving productivity, how productive we are in our days, improving creativity, okay, being able to connect the dots and to problem solve and to be creative in our life, and to reduce stress. Okay, this concept of hyperfocus and scatter focus really can reduce a lot of stress. What we're trying to do is be able to produce more with less. Okay? We only have so many hours in the day, but we have a lot of demands on our time. So what we have to do is not just work harder, we have to work smarter. If we're going to get ahead, we have to work smarter. We have to use our time more effectively. And that's what this whole book is about in these concepts. Okay, so first let's talk about hyperfocus. So hyperfocus is when we direct our full attention to one task, blocking out distractions. It helps us work efficiently and produce higher quality work. However, it does take conscious effort as our brains naturally want to wander. Okay, so it's really bringing that attention into a hyper-focus mode. Bailey explains that our minds only have so much attention available, so we need to choose carefully where we place it. The best way to use hyperfocus is to choose one important task, remove distractions, and work on it for a set amount of time. So in the book, he really gives a great argument with a lot of data that shows us that multitasking is not effective. It's not something that we really can do because we really are just like breaking up our focus into multiple things, which means we're not doing things very well. And whatever we're doing, we're not doing very well. Whereas if we can choose carefully what we are going to attend to and hyper focus on it, then we're going to be producing higher quality work. We're going to be more efficient with our time and our energy, and it's going to produce amazing results for us. As we were talking about this, one of our students, he mentioned, he in his life, when he gets into this hyper focus mode, and another concept I want to, introduce here is that hyper focus is the pathway to flow. So if you've heard the concept of flow is a state of being where, and I'm just kind of paraphrasing in my own words, but flow, you've probably experienced it, is when you get into working on something and you lose track of time. You just, you're super productive with it. You're getting a lot done. You're just locked in to this task or this whatever you're doing. You lose track of time. Okay? That's a flow state. Hyperfocus is what gets us into that flow state. And so when we can remove distractions, so one of our students was talking about these 3 things that he does to get into that flow state or into this hyper-focus mode, is he identifies triggers or distractions that he needs to remove, like phone notifications or email notifications or, any kind of notifications or things that are happening around him, making sure that he's in an environment where no one's going to distract him and that he's taking care of things like getting a good breakfast so that he's not hungry and distracted by hunger. Okay, there's all these things that we can do to identify those triggers that are distractions to being able to be in this hyper focus mode. The second thing is that he has clear goals. So again, intention. We're identifying exactly what we want to get done. What is the important task that we need to get done? So for me right now, and today, it was doing the book club and recording a podcast. Okay, so I had that intentionally. These are the tasks that I really want to accomplish here today. So those were clear goals. Number 3 is create an optimal environment for it. And so he mentioned, like for him, it's the beginning of the day. Another student today was saying it's more the afternoon is more his hyper focus time. It is, again, making sure that you've had breakfast or you have water to drink or that you've, used the restroom, creating an environment where that you can work on this specific task for a set amount of time. Another strategy that we talked about, and it was talked about in the book as well, is setting a timer and being able to say, okay, I'm going to focus for 30 minutes and then I'm going to take a break, or 50 minutes and then I'm going to take a break. And working in those, like, I'm going to focus for this amount of time and take a break, that can be really, really effective for our minds, so that we feel like, okay, I'm going to be able to get a break at some point, but just strengthening that muscle where it's like, okay, I'm working on this I'm going to, exercise this muscle of focus, and then we're going to take a break. And then we're going to exercise that focus and then take a break. Obviously it aligns with a practice of exercising actual physical muscles, that our brains are a muscle that needs a lot of those same strategies. Okay, so let's talk about scatter focus. So scatter focus is the opposite of hyper focus. Instead of concentrating on one task, we let our minds wander and explore various ideas. So this state is more relaxed, and it's best for creative thinking, problem solving, and planning. Okay, in this scatter focus mode, we are free to let ideas come to us without pressure. Okay, this state is often when new insights and ideas emerge as our brains connect pieces of information naturally. Okay, so in our discussion, what we talked about is that, the scatter focus is more relaxing, it's more open, there's no pressure. But in it, we can be more intentional about it. For myself, I get into this scatter focus when in the mornings, I go on a walk, and I call it my walk and talk with God. It's more for prayer and meditation. And so I'm doing something habitual, like going on a walk. I think that for me, the being outside, fresh air, like being in nature, helps me get into this kind of mode of scatter focus where I'm problem solving more. And I noticed that when I first start into getting into this more scatter focus mode of thinking, instantly I'm hit with like tasks, like, oh, don't forget to call this person, or don't forget to get this thing. And I'm kind of bombarded at first with some of these to-do lists. And so I pull out my phone and I write things down to kind of free my mind of those, because otherwise my brain is just going to kind of fixate on that so that I don't forget about it. So if I put it on a task list or put it in my phone as just like something that I'm going to take care of later, then my brain can kind of release that and be open more for, what comes next. So after that, my mind's a lot more like, just all over the place when I start these walks. But I noticed that as I move into it, and I'm more intentional as far as like asking questions and focusing in on a specific problem, then my mind can start problem solving. It can do more of the creative thinking and planning and organizing. And so it is very, so much more effective. It's not this high pressure, like get tasks done that hyper focus is, but it is more just like open thinking, but it is directed. There are certain things that I want to specifically think about and problem solve for. And so it's just a space for ideas to flow. Okay. So think about it in your own life. You probably already have a ritual or a way of being that brings you into this scatter focus and even the hyper focus. You're six professionals who have careers and have done really great things in your life. So obviously you have both of these modes working for you in one way or another. The key here is just to get awareness of it. When we put kind of organize the concepts and get more intentional about like talking about them specifically, you can refine them even more. So as we were talking about this, I was like, oh yeah, this is what I do for hyper focus. This is what I do for scatter focus. But I recognize that for me, a lot of times I try to do both at the same time. I'm often trying to mix the two. And what I've realized through reading this book and through the discussion is that I really need to be intentional about, okay, this is the time for scatter focus, and this is the time for hyper focus, and not trying to multitask and do, various things at one time, but just say, I'm going to focus on this one thing, and then this one thing, and then this one thing. And the more I can do that, the more effective I'll be with my time. and it will be less stressful because I'm getting things done and I'm not trying to think about so many things all at once. So for example, like I remember the other night I sat down with my computer, I turned on a show, and I was trying to do some work on my computer. And I was like, how about I just get the work done on my computer? And I was kind of bouncing back and forth between these two things. And then also my phone was there. And so I was like, then anytime some notification or something, I would come and pay attention to it. And I'm like, what if I just turned off the TV, turned off, notifications on my phone, got the work done on my computer, and then went over to my phone and kind of played around and then turned on the show? My brain would be way more relaxed about it. And so I think that would help a lot more. So let's bring it back to improving our English, okay? Is that, hyper focus is when we do our read out loud practice. When we're, again, 2 minutes a day, reading out loud, really hyper focusing on our pronunciation, slowing down, moving your mouth and speaking louder, and then focusing on a specific target sound. So if it's the TH sound, it's the vowels, the long vowels, whatever it is that you need to improve on with your spoken English and your pronunciation, hyper focus on that while you're reading out loud. That is the intentional time for you to be focused and practicing that spoken English. Okay. Same thing for conversation, as just being like, I'm going into a conversation, I'm going to hyper focus on slowing down, moving my mouth, and speaking louder. Okay. So that's a little bit more of a multitask situation, but that 2 minute a day of practice, 2 minute or more a day of practicing reading out loud, is very much a hyper focused task that we need to do to eliminate all of those distractions, create an optimal environment, and just get that done daily. All right. Whereas scatter focus is allowing your brain to then just like think in English. Okay. How would I describe that in English? And, like just kind of thinking and planning and thinking about vocabulary words, and how would I use that vocabulary word in different settings? And, so it's more free thinking. It's it's less pressure, but you can still have some intention about it. Okay. Our next, we've kind of talked about this, but the third concept I want to talk about is managing distractions. So one of the biggest challenges to focus is managing distractions, especially our digital ones. So Bailey advises turning off unnecessary notifications and setting boundaries for checking messages and emails. Okay. He spoke significantly about, we spent a lot of time talking in this book about the number of times we're distracted in a given day, in a given hour, because of notifications, emails, messages, things that are coming in, and making our brains think that it's emergent, like it's very urgent, but really it's not. It could wait, right? And so if we can kind of experiment more with just turning off these notifications and setting boundaries around it and saying, this is the time I'm going to do this, and this is the time I'm going to do this other thing, it really, really helps make our time more efficient. So Bailey suggests organizing the workspace that you're in, your environment, to reduce distractions, and setting aside dedicated time for tasks that require focus. Okay, so we're intentionally saying, this is the time of my day that we're going to set aside time. So companies have definitely experimented with this, where it's like certain times of the day, it's like you can't go and talk to each other in a workplace. And, that there's certain times that you can identify for yourself. This is when I need to focus completely, and making sure that the distractions are minimal and your environment is optimal. Okay, number 4 is all about creating habits for focus. So developing good habits around focus is absolutely essential. So Bailey advises that routines like creating a to-do list, setting specific goals, and planning breaks can make it easier to enter a state of hyper focus. So habits around hyper focus are super, super important. It's the kind of the precursor, or what you do before going into the hyper focus mode. Identifying for yourself, okay, this is what works for me to go into hyper focus mode, just allows you to have some power and intention about it. So if you're like, I experience hyper focus mode sometimes, but I'm not really sure how to do it deliberately or intentionally, you can set this way of focus up by the habits that you create around it. So again, setting specific goals, planning a time to hyper focus, planning breaks around it. These are things that you can kind of I decide ahead of time. So the author also highlights the importance of understanding our energy levels throughout the day and scheduling difficult tasks for when we're most alert. So is the morning time better for you, or is it in the evening? Is it in the later afternoon? Like, when is it best for you to be able to get into this hyper focus state? So next, let's talk about, this is number 5, let's talk about the role of mindfulness. So Bailey discusses mindfulness as a way to improve focus and attention. So practicing mindfulness helps train the mind to stay present and notice when it's distracted. So practicing mindfulness is practicing thinking about what you're thinking. It's basically, taking a time to be still and saying, okay, I'm bringing my thoughts back to the present. Maybe my thoughts have been all over the place, but now I'm going to bring it back to the present. I'm going to focus on my breathing. I'm going to notice, when my mind starts wandering, I'm going to start bringing it back. And this is really kind of a lot of the exercise that helps us be better at focusing is this mindfulness practice. So simple practices like mind meditation or breathing exercises can make it easier to stay focused and to get back on track if our minds start to wander. Okay. So if you have a practice of meditation, of breathing, of mindfulness, this is going to help you be able to get into that state of hyper focus even better and stay in that state of hyper focus, because it can be quite uncomfortable if you're not used to it. So this is kind of that practice and training ground for deeper focus. Okay, number 6 is balancing hyper focus and scatter focus. So the ideal approach is to balance both states. So hyper focus helps us complete tasks efficiently, while scatter focus allows us to rest, reflect, and come up with new ideas. So we can't, just like we can't exercise on full speed all day every day. We can't focus our minds for, all day every day. We have to have time for rest and reflection and coming up with new ideas. Another part of this is not always filling our brains with information. We have the ability to constantly be consuming information, but this is not the best for our brains. We need time to rest. We need time to be bored. We need time to just reflect and think about experiences that we've had, or things that we're reading, or things that we've a conversation that we've had, so that we can come up with new ideas and be able to connect the dots and just kind of think about stuff. That's why, people talk about when they're in the shower, their best ideas come, is because usually you don't have a lot of input. You're just in this more scatter focus state of mind where you can reflect, you think about things, connect dots, and come up with new ideas. Bailey suggests alternating between the two states, using hyperfocus to work on important tasks and scatter focus to recharge or think creatively. So really having a balance of the two is important. And so as you're going about your day, identifying, okay, here's where I'm going to hyper focus. Here's where I'm going to just allow my thoughts to wander. And here's where I'm going to kind of consume information. But again, intentionality. We're being intentional about our attention, our focus. And that is the superpower that we're discussing today. Okay, so let's talk about, our final point 7 is the benefits of effective focus. What are the benefits of effective focus? When we manage our attention well, we become more productive and efficient. we also experience less stress and burnout. Okay. As we spend our time on meaningful work instead of getting overwhelmed by tasks and distractions. So we can reduce our stress by spending more time on meaningful work instead of the overwhelm that is kind of the tasks and distractions that are kind of flowing through our brain all the time. Okay. Let's choose hyper focus. Let's choose scatter focus, and let's choose kind of how we're bringing our thoughts together. So better focus also means higher quality work and more personal satisfaction as we achieve more with less effort. Higher quality work, it's also higher quality interactions. So one thing that we talked about in our book club today was the importance of really focusing in on the person that we're talking to. And that attention really is the way that we show love to people. Because if you're, ever in a conversation and someone's checking their phone all the time, or they're obviously distracted thinking about something else, you don't feel that great in that conversation. They're not really paying attention to you, they're not listening. And really that really is harmful to the relationship. And it's just kind of frustrating because versus when you're in a conversation where they're 100% with you, they're really attending to you and you to them, you can go into this state of flow, you can go into this state of hyper focus where there is so much, it's just higher quality conversation. And I value that so much. And that is something that I really have been working on, even though before this book, I didn't have the concept of hyper focus or scattered focus. I have been thinking about that a lot, of just like when I'm with someone, I want to put away the distractions. I want to really just focus in on what they're saying and give them my undivided attention. Okay. That shows love. That shows that they're important. And the more we can do that for our loved ones and for our coworkers and for our boss, the better those relationships are going to be. So really, if there's any area to apply this, it's really that is really in those conversations. Let's be better at focusing and giving our full attention there. It will pay out 1,000-fold. Okay. So right now, I just kind of want you to think. Let's do a little reflection and a scatter focus right now. What is your key takeaway from today's discussion? What is it that was meaningful for you? What are you going to do differently? Take a minute, and especially after I finish this podcast, stay there in silence for a little while and identify for yourself, kind of reflect on the things that you've learned today and identify a key takeaway, something that you can apply in your life. Is it that you're going to be more deliberate about hyperfocus and scatter focus? Is it that you are going to silence some notifications on your phone, or set up some boundaries about when your phone is available to you and when it's not? I know for myself, I'm definitely going to put more restrictions or boundaries around my phone when I'm with my kids. I know there's a lot of things that I'm doing at the same time that I'm present with my kids, and I want there to be more deliberate attention to being with my kids versus kind of the to-dos and the tasks that I need to do for my kids. I'm also going to really be deliberate about when I'm doing hyper focus work and when I'm doing scatter focus, and not try and mix things together. That multitasking is not working very effectively for me. So I really want to be conscious of making sure I'm not doing that very much. So I want you to think for yourself, what is it that you can do? And what can you put in place, or habits or situations where you can be intentional about your attention? All right. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I'm glad that we were able to pull you into a little bit of our book club meeting today. But the value really comes from the discussion, the experience that we have together at Pronunciation Pro in these book club meetings. And so I encourage you to come join Pronunciation Pro. Come be deliberate about your practice of improving your pronunciation, improving your American accent, and building that confidence in your spoken English. That's what we're doing. That's what we're all about, because it is all about connection and how we're able to connect with each other. So I'm grateful that I was able to connect with you today through this podcast, and I would love to be able to connect with you more in person through the Pronunciation Pro program. So I invite you to come join us there. The next book for our book club meeting is going to be Atomic Habits, and we're going to do that in January. This has become kind of a thing for us at Pronunciation Pro, is to review the book Atomic Habits at the beginning of the year as we are working on goals and making sure that we're setting ourselves up for a good year, a good new year. So if you can get a copy of that and start reading it, and then join us at Pronunciation Pro and become a member, we'd love for you to join us for our next book club meeting. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I'm so glad you could join us for this discussion, and I hope to see you again soon see you soon in the Pronunciation Pro program. And be sure to subscribe to, either if you're watching this on YouTube or on the podcast, follow along so that we can keep learning together. And if you would like to write a review, I would love that as well. All right. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Pronunciation Pro.
Pronunciation Pro.
Pronunciation Pro.